Hello.
Graham, good evening.
Hello, Charles.
Well, glad to hear from you. Monday night, always a slight change from a Sunday. Always perky on a Monday night before going off to.
Yeah, but nobody knows. This is a podcast. We're not live. We're not like
I realise
broadcasting.
that. Where am I going? I'm seeing Stuart Lee tonight in his Basic
Are
Lee
you?
show.
Well, okay, so you're proving the date now, but we could actually be recording this 10 years ago in a bunker in Venezuela for all listeners now.
I don't know if we quite are in an alternative reality. I feel it's quite worth mentioning where I'm going tonight because I'm hoping to comment on it in the next episode. So I
We,
know I think
we,
it's good to be
we,
grounded. I don't
we
feel
saw Lee
we're
and Herring at the Edinburgh Fringe about 1995, if you
Yeah,
remember.
well remembered. How long ago was that? No, well, 1995. There you go.
You know.
So, Graham, actually, that leads us in perhaps our first topic of the night, which is having already, of course, updated on the what looks like good news for the future of the Edinburgh International Film Festival. There could just be hopes beginning to save Edinburgh Filmhouse with Mark Cousins, former director of the Edinburgh International Film Festival, a documentary maker and wonderful Irishman, full stop, leading the rally to save Edinburgh Filmhouse. So, what's the news on that?
Yeah, before we do that, I need to say an apology to the world for getting the
Oh,
Oscars pretty wrong, quite frankly, because I thought Elvis would win big, and in
yeah.
fact, Elvis left the building. And I thought Everything Everywhere All at Once wouldn't win anything because it was too futuristic and had a storyline about a multiverse, whatever that is. And of course, Everything actually won everything. So I got
It did.
that
I thought it could only
wholly
win
wrong.
in an alternative world, but in fact, it took all those awards.
Mm.
And
I mean, I
interestingly,
was right. The Banshees of Inisherin got nothing,
yeah, I mean,
which, if you look at the
well, that's
storyline,
another thing that the Oscars do, isn't it? Where actually they then get completely over the top about one film and actually go
mm,
beyond the logical bounds of how many people from that film should be receiving the Oscars. So I think it got a little bit carried away,
entirely
a little
right.
bit
You're
over the top.
entirely right. I think the mistake I made was that I didn't realize that Parasite, the South Korean
Yeah,
anti-capitalist satire that won big in 2019,
yeah,
wasn't an aberration. It was a trend. So the Oscars
yeah.
basically are a bit more out there these days.
Absolutely. So, of course, Michelle Yeoh, I think let's champion the fact that I utterly think should have happened in the other award ceremonies. It did happen in this one, and that was good to see. Perhaps the one surprise was the whale, Brendan Fraser. What do you read into that, Graham?
Yeah, well, in Hollywood they love it if you put on weight for a movie. It always goes down big. So like, I think Robert De
Well,
Niro put
shouldn't
on
the
lots of weight to
Oscar
play
go
Jake
to
LaMotta in
the?
Raging Bull,
Yeah,
and
but
he
shouldn't.
probably got
Yeah,
this
but
one.
I mean, I don't think Brendan Fraser genuinely put on weight, whereas obviously De Niro did. I think that was all the works
Really?
of some. I'm
Ha
sure he
hand his
did.
award back.
I'm sure that was a prosthetic suit, wasn't it? I can't imagine he put all that weight
Look,
on.
if all he's doing is acting, come on, that's just not right, is it?
That's just not enough, is it?
Mm.
No, I'd be amazed if I mean, surely physically it's not safe to put all that weight on. I mean, surely not.
Well, loads of people try it and do it in the
Yeah,
world we're
I
in
do
now.
it without
So
meaning to do it, Graham, and I'm not getting an Oscar for the way I've got. Um, I mean, maybe in his case, it's coming back. If the people do like a comeback as well, obviously Elvis was the ultimate comeback,
yeah,
reincarnated as Austin Butler, and that didn't in the end up winning. But maybe with Brendan Fraser, it's one of those appreciations of a talent that's
yeah.
had his
A bit
down
like
moments
Michael
and
Keaton. Michael
suddenly
Keaton
comes
suddenly
back
got an
in.
Oscar
Mm,
after years of not doing very much. Yeah, you're
mm,
right. They like they like the guy who used to be successful who
yeah.
then becomes less successful. Then he has a resurrection. They do like that. Yeah, that's
And
got a bit
actually, that
religious. I
applied,
need to
of
be religious.
course, that applied as well, didn't it, in the supporting actor with whose name is now going to escape me, but the
Jamie
actor
Lee
who
Curtis.
was a childhood
Oh no,
star,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
of course, this was his big comeback as well. Um, so Hollywood does like that. Oscar awards do like that. So I
Anyway,
mean, when you
you
say
could
you got it
spend an
wrong,
eternity trying to figure out the logic of Oscars. So let's move on.
I think that actually is the perfect summary, Graham. That one cannot ultimately predict. And in some
Mm,
ways, it is actually healthy that in the end, the big awards ceremonies, the big three, if you like, have been more diverse than maybe we expected, and that has, I think, ultimately been a good thing that has happened.
Yeah, the Academy verse is a universe of its own, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's not a multiverse; it's a narrow verse. So now,
Yeah.
Graham, if we're looking at maybe a name who's, I think it's fair to say normally Status Quo would be expected to have at least a couple of hits every single year. There was a time when they'd do at least that. But Francis Rossi, he's not down, down, deeper and down yet. Unlike many a musician from his era, he's still up, 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 and he's going to be at Harrogate Theatre. And he's not going to be singing, and he's not going to be playing guitar,
Well,
or is he? He's going to be
there's a
talking.
bit of singing. Yeah, there's a bit of singing
Oh,
guitar
there's a bit of
playing.
singing as well. So what's the story here,
Yeah.
Graham?
Well, Status Quo were absolutely massive for an awful long time. So much
They were.
so they've had more hit singles in Britain than anybody except Cliff Richard, and that
Mm,
includes Elvis. So in
mm.
Britain they're absolutely huge, but they were never known for, being intellectual or come up with great lyrics. I mean, what have you got in the great Status Quo hits? Down, down, deeper and down. Come on, sweet Caroline, you're my sweet Caroline. That you wouldn't have thought that Francis Rossi and obviously the late Rick Parfitt would do a talking tour, but it seems that he actually enjoys talking. And when I talked to him on the phone for the Harrogate Advertiser
Mm,
about the show he's bringing to Harrogate Theatre on May the 20th this year,
mm.
he's very good at talking. He's an intelligent, likable guy. He swears quite a lot, like it was still 1974. But apart from that, he's definitely worth listening to. He's quite thoughtful. So he's also very, very honest, which quite surprised me. So he admitted that he actually was quite pleased that Status Quo had never been cool, because that meant they never went out of fashion. And
He's got
he
a
also
point with that.
admitted that
It's got. I mean, that is
yeah.
true. They were never cool. Not never.
No,
And
but he
nor
said he
did, but
said
and
John
but the
Peel.
fans didn't care about that either, did they? Between them, there was a
No, the
perfect
fans
match.
were totally loyal. As long
Mm,
as they could get to the gig and nod their heads up and down to the
mm,
same beat over and over again, they were
mm.
absolutely deliriously happy. And they had a fearsome reputation in the 70s as a live band. But he said that John Peel once apologised to him in the 70s. I said, that's quite a surprise. And he said, yeah, well, he got in touch after he saw his live and said, look, I've always thought you were uncool, but you're really good, which is
I
quite
saw
nice.
them well aptly, given one of the songs has got rain in the title. I indeed see them in the rain at Dolby Forest, and they work an audience really well. You can't get away from that.
Mm.
I mean, when they would all have the heads down in the blue jeans doing their, it's cheesy in its own way, but actually, much like UB40 found ways to have hit after hit after hit, Cliff Richard has done. Cliff Richard probably changed actually much more than those two acts through his career. He actually showed more variety than perhaps people give him credit for. Um, but with Status
Let's not be
Quo,
nice to Cliff Richard,
the
Charles.
name could not have been more appropriate because the status quo never changed. It remained the status
Oh,
quo.
hold on there, Baldy.
Oh, here we go,
In the
Graham.
80s, in the 80s, they definitely became more pop and definitely had a lot more musical variety. But that, of course, is when their reputation really plummeted, because at least in the 70s, they were a good old reliable rock blues band. But they
Mm.
definitely changed musically in the 80s and kept on having massive hits. So who could blame them? But he also
They
admitted that
became
he didn't really like he didn't really like Francis Rossi. Doesn't really like the music business at all. He says it's completely unreal. The whole thing is just absolute rubbish. He said.
Did he say that they, if we look at that logically, selling the soul to the devil or whatever, did it feel like that? Did he say? I mean, when actually, you're right, they became more overtly commercial in the 1980s.
No, if you look at I went to the trouble of buying their five biggest albums of the 70s, and from the very beginning there was always quite a lot of variety because they started off as a sort of psychedelic pop band
Yeah.
in the late 1960s. So on all those huge albums of the 70s with the big boogie hits, there'd be like the occasional country and western track,
Mm.
occasional ballad, a little bit of like stretching out with different forms of music. They were never and they're quite poppy in places. Well, they're never just a rock band or a blues rock band. There was always a few more strings to the bow. I think what happened was that they got bored with the formula,
Yeah.
and
Well,
also
yeah.
when they veered from the formula and became a bit more pop and a bit more cheesy, actually, they actually had bigger hits. So they obviously decided to keep on going.
We're in the army now, for example. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a great sing along.
Maybe that now there's the word as well, Graham. They are really good at sing-alongs.
Mm. sort of Oasis style.
Oasis, who would probably not want to admit any influence from some status quo.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I suspect that is actually.
I,
I
I,
I think you could see. I think you could see a little genetic process between the two there. Yeah.
I could definitely hear. I could see status quo of old doing Roll
Mm,
with It and
yeah.
making it a better track.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now, just remind me when he's coming, then, Graham.
Uh, May the 20th, Harrogate Theatre.
And is
But he's
this?
doing. It's his second tour of talking, and he's
Yeah.
doing it again. It went well last time, but he noticed that when he did it first time round, that a lot of people were asking, enjoyed the bits where he played songs on his acoustic guitar. So he's
So
chucking in more of that. So
so that's what it's going to
he's
be.
upping it.
So he'll have his acoustic guitar. He'll play his three chords. He'll still wear the blue jeans.
Yeah,
And what's the show
he's
called?
doing. I think it's called Tunes and Amp and Chat. So it's sort of like he's trying to
Tunes
cover
and
all the
Amp
bases.
and Chat.
I think so. It was
That's a
such
kind of does what it says
when I
on the tin
scribbled.
type title. Hmm.
Yeah, when I scribbled that down, I thought it's a pretty rubbish title. I'm not gonna. I'll never remember that properly, and I haven't.
No, no, I don't. No. So I mean, he may need to work on his title a little bit. Did he talk about fellow members of the band at all? Because of course there were fallouts, not so much with Parfit, but there were fallouts. Indeed, one of the members, of course, is Alan Lancaster, long time not in the band.
Yeah, well, I didn't go into that for the simple reason I'd interviewed Rick Parfitt about 7 years or 8 years ago, and I
Yeah,
did a bit of that then, and I don't like to go back over the same ground, and also I don't like repeating stories that other journalists have already covered to death.
yeah.
It's like, what's the point of that? These are stories everybody's heard before, and the guy is 73 and he hasn't got Rick anymore,
No,
and the band won't do anything again, or not
no,
very
it won't.
much
No, no.
again. So why ask him questions that's going to drag up something that's a bit
The,
sad, really?
yeah.
I didn't feel like doing it.
Well, that's fair, Graham. I'm surprised because you do like to have the ability to upset who you interview, so you've missed out on an opportunity there, I feel.
It must have been an off day.
So, Graham, we chatted briefly at the start about two pieces of Edinburgh news that we've heard of, one of which, of course, is potentially the saving of the Edinburgh International Film Festival. But likewise, and connected with that, is the rally taking place to save the Edinburgh Filmhouse, which has effectively been the hub of the International Film Festival for a very, very long time. And there are growing hopes that maybe Edinburgh Filmhouse can be saved too. Prominent in this is a rally involving Mark Cousins, former director of the film festival, now a documentary filmmaker with a considerable range of films that he's made and topics that he's studied, and of course detailed books that he's written on film as well. A man of utter passion for film, and if you were wanting someone to head any attempt to save the film house, I think you'd be looking for Mark to be involved. So what is the news on how this is going, Graham? What have you heard?
Well, I've spared no amount of time to do deep research on this, or in other words, I've been following on Twitter. So I've been following Brian Ferguson of the Scotsman in Edinburgh, and
Yes.
he's covered the whole thing exceedingly well. So if you follow Brian Ferguson's tweets at the Scotsman in Edinburgh, you'll get up to date every single week, if not every day. I've been
Yeah.
following Mark Cousins on Twitter, and for a guy who makes documentaries, although he's currently on the March on Rome about Mussolini and the film industry in the 20s,
Mm.
it's already gone down well internationally. And his previous one, the Story of Film, was obviously an amazing film, and the
Yeah.
Eyes of Orson Welles got an award at Cannes Film Festival. So for a documentary filmmaker, he's quite a flamboyant, creative, charismatic character,
He
which is
is.
quite unusual for documentary filmmakers. But anyway, his Twitter account has got 390,000 followers, which is again
Mm.
pretty damn impressive. So I
Mm.
follow Mark Cousins, and I don't think he led the rally. In fact, I'm pretty sure he didn't. But he was there and he did publicise it, and it was held outside the film house on Sunday
Yeah.
lunchtime,
Yeah.
i.e., yesterday, if we're sticking to
Yesterday.
real time,
Yeah.
on Lothian Road, that great long street of like scuzzy bars and pizzerias, which also includes the great home of classical music and concerts, the Usher Hall,
It
as
does.
well. And
Mm.
he tweeted like, "Let's make real noise about this. Let's get the politicians to actually listen." And
Mm.
so it seems that from what Brian Ferguson said at the Scotsman, that an Edinburgh businessman with the backing of former staff at the Filmhouse is now trying to buy the Filmhouse and reopen it
Mm.
as still a cinema, which sounds quite promising. The only problem is that there's also rumours that a bar operator is going to buy it, and bar operators tend to have an awful lot of money. So if it comes down to the administrators choosing between big money and doing the right thing, it's not entirely certain who's going to win. I would suspect that if the businessman and the former staff are going to win this one, they'll need the same sort of support that both the film festival and King's
Yes.
Theatre Edinburgh have had. And the film festival is only happening now because Screen Scotland, which is backed by the Scottish government, is financially backing it. And King's Theatre is only remaining open at Edinburgh because Creative Scotland, backed by the Scottish government, is financially backing it as well. So I would suspect if Screen Scotland somehow got involved with the Filmhouse campaign, it would definitely survive as the Filmhouse, which of course would be fantastic because it would mean that the great tradition there of mingling and mixing and informality would carry on, which if it goes somewhere else may be lost forever.
I mean, the other thing on that, Graham, is how many more bars do you need?
65.
65. I mean, Edinburgh has plenty of bars. I think to give preference to a bar,
especially Lothian Road. My God,
of course, it's all busy
bar.
with bars. There's loads of bars in Edinburgh. I mean, the whole thing with it, when the festival is on, it's fantastic, of course, for the bar economy up there. But you really do not need yet another bar. You just don't. You do need, however, to save a cinema. I can't see how a bar deserves to win out over a cinema, which can have a bar within it, serving drinks if necessary.
I think you're entirely right.
Well, I know I'm right, Graham. I don't want to get stroppy, but I just
well, not for the last time. You're entirely right, Charles.
Well, it's just I don't. It's not even complicated, is it?
No, you're right. Edinburgh's got loads of bars. We don't need a bar. It hasn't got, apart from the Cameo, it hasn't got another true art house cinema.
No, exactly.
And so in the film, it's got such
it's
a
a capital city. It's a capital city.
You're right. If this was in London, it would already be national news. If the BFI was in trouble in London, or
absolutely, Graham.
The cinema was in trouble, or some Art Deco cinema in London was in trouble, it'd be national news, and I don't understand why.
There's no doubt about that. So anyway, let's hope that Edinburgh Filmhouse can live to see another day and show another film. It would only be appropriate if it can be an empire of light, not a place to pull yet another pint. So Graham, you have remembered a concert that I have got absolutely no memory of, which is disturbing, given that it's one of my favorite.
I'm not sure you went to this one though, Charles. In fact, I'm pretty sure you didn't.
I know I didn't go.
Yeah, so, well, that's why you don't remember it.
So the Go-Betweens, Australian band. There's an era of Australian bands. Go-Betweens, obviously Nick Cave's couple of bands, Birthday Party, and then the Bad Seeds, the Triffids, and of course everyone remembers the World of Split Ends, followed by the World of Crowded House. But the Go-Betweens, who I thought
weren't Crowded House New Zealand? I mean, I could be wrong here.
It's confusing. There is New Zealand. There's both New Zealand and Australian involvement.
Oh, I'm okay. You're fine then, Charles. I was just checking in case any angry New Zealanders out there heard this.
And I'm not going to doubt that you're right, that the Go-Betweens played at York Barbican nearly 20 years ago. I can't find anything
London
to say that was not the case.
This is why you didn't know about it. It was in London.
Oh, was that Barbican?
Yeah. That Barbican, yeah.
It was the London Barbican. Well, that explains it, Graham,
because the proper Barbican.
If it had been the York Barbican, I would have remembered it. So thank goodness for that.
Yeah, exactly,
But almost 20 years ago, you saw this gig. And the reason that we're mentioning is that Robert Forster from the Go-Betweens has just played in York at the Crescent, and we'll come on to that as well. But just first of all, the context of what you remember seeing the Go-Betweens when this was, bless him, Grant McLennan tragically died, and we're left with the wonderful music of the Go-Betweens and Robert Forster still making music, but he remains a great loss as Grant McLennan. And you did have the luck of seeing them live nearly 20 years ago in the Barbican. What do you recall of that night, Graham?
Loads. You and me first saw them Go-Betweens playing Britain about 1988 on the 16 Lovers Lane tour.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the big breakthrough album. Was going to be a big hit because they had genuine pop songs in it. Not that they never had pop songs,
but they still weren't hits.
Yeah, which is upsetting, annoying, irritating. So the band split up not that much longer after 16 Lovers Lane. Then they re-emerged in the early noughties, and I wasn't so sure that it was going to be that great. So I went to see them in Manchester, probably at one of those O2 academies at the university, but like O2 Academy 2 or something, not the really big one. And they were really good. Played Surfer Magazines off the new album and a few other tracks. And Robert Forster looked very dapper, like a sort of like very stylish academic in his sort of like
Yes.
dark suit and open neck shirt and his slightly long, loose hair.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, they're pretty good, really. You know. So when they decided they were going to play the Barbican in London as a big splash, it's a big statement saying like, we are a big band. We may not have had huge hits, but we are definitely a big band. And this happened in 2004. I thought, I've got to go.
Yeah.
And bear in mind that Grant McClellan died in 2006, a
Yeah.
few years later. Bearing also in mind that after this one-off show at the Barbican in London, they only played one more tour of Britain, and that only consisted of one gig in London, one in
Yeah.
Birmingham, and two in Glasgow. That was it. So this is one of the last gigs of Grant McClellan, and it was a
Mm.
special gig because they did it in two sets. And the first set was the basic band playing mainly early tracks off the first album when they were slightly punky and slightly Jonathan Richman, and when they were still great, but a very different band.
Yeah.
And the second set they came back augmented by a string section and various musicians and played a complete cost section of their entire career. All different styles, really sophisticatedly done. And it was just amazing that they were absolutely superb musically. And it was such variety. And I liked them better than I liked them in 1988 on 16 Lovers Lane tour when they were much younger. I liked them better than at Manchester the year before. They really suited being on in a posher venue with a full band in a sort of serious occasion rather than being a scruffy indie band playing an indie venue.
And the
Just
scale
superb,
and actually on the scale that there should have been.
exactly, it did work.
I mean, I
It had
genuinely
the
think
hits.
if you pick out one band, and I mean, this might be simplifying things. I feel that they are the band that should have been massive that never was. REM became
Yeah,
huge. Go-Betweens
there's other
never.
bands you've picked to be in the top 10, but Go-Betweens are probably the top one who had way less success than their songwriting skills and their
Correct.
pop smarts deserve.
Absolutely, I agree.
But the highlight of the gig for me was the fact that there's something sad about it as well. Grant was putting his heart into it, but he didn't look. He looked like a bit. I thought he looked a bit pale and slightly lacking life. And Robert sort of stood out more, and he did one great track which I've always loved, which you'll probably know as well, "When People Are Dead," on the piano, virtually on his own. And that song is amazing because it was written when he was a young man, but it captures the weight of grief and death really well. It's sort of like somehow without being over the top at all. He sums up in the feeling, in the restraint of the feeling, the complete uselessness of grief, the pointless nature of it, but also the endless nature of it. The fact that you know it's pointless, but it's not going to go away, and he gets that across in quite straightforward song that he wrote as a young man. And it was almost like I didn't know it was coming, but it applies to Grant as well. It's almost like he knew what was coming.
I mean, you can have these things that whether it is just a premonition that is there, and it's only in retrospect you think, oh, well, maybe he knew something at the time. But you do kind of wonder. I mean, that is entirely feasible. And the life of the rock musician has that element of. I mean, it's oversimplifying to say that all rock musicians are living in danger, but it isn't a lifestyle that is conventional. It just isn't. And so
No,
there's probably
it's mentally draining. It's mentally upsetting.
yeah,
It's mentally unbalancing, and you're
exactly.
prone to like have the time and inclination to deal in drink and drugs.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons,
and
it's really
not
bad
eating
for
it,
your mental
and
health.
probably not eating at healthy times of day. Plus, creativity can be so frustrating
That's the least
and
of the problem.
exhausting. There are all these different elements, and there is also that thing of burning. Well, obviously burning the candle at both ends, and maybe the flame sometimes it just does extinguish much sooner than it would in a different world. And I think that would apply to Grant. There is that thing of maybe even getting so much life into a briefer time than it would otherwise be, and that probably applies to many a musician, and Grant probably was one of those. It's interesting, obviously, the
I'd
contrast.
also say the one thing about the Go-Betweens was they were too down to earth. They were definitely not pretentious, even though they were actually intellectually quite deep. Unlike Nick Cave, who has no trouble acting like a poet, like he was Oscar Wilde or something in the world. Go-Betweens were resolutely down to earth, which in the long run didn't serve them well because if you want to be taken as a big band, you almost have to act like a big band. Something that U2 adopted quite early on.
They clearly made that decision, didn't they? We are going to be massive. I mean, that's very interesting because if we look at the gig that I saw, So Robert Forster's playing at the Crescent community venue in York. It's a seated
How
gig.
many does that hold? Yeah, how many
So,
does
I
that
mean,
hold?
I think it can hold maybe 150, maybe something like that. I'm sorry to be a bit vague
Really?
on it.
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah,
when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
seated, obviously it'll be a little bit more compact. Anyway,
Mm.
so he played with his son Lewis, and Lewis kind of looked like a younger version of when Robert was at his most handsome, and he still had the flowing locks, and
Debonair,
a
quietly debonair.
slim figure. Looked a really cool guy. His father Robert was very much more. I think you termed that he could almost be the kind of lecturer look about him. He was playing not lecturer. So
Yeah.
he came on very no big build up. Just came on stage wearing open neck shirt and a tidy pair of trousers. And his son says very little. He doesn't even introduce Lewis at the start. Lewis only mentions by name. Doesn't at any stage even say who Lewis is. Really, he doesn't mention that the band the Goon Sax that he's been in, etc. So all very low. The whole gig was very low key. The two of them on guitars. Robert playing acoustic guitar throughout, and Lewis either switching between acoustic guitar or then going on to electric bass. And Lewis didn't play on all the songs, but played on a lot of them. And it
Mm.
was a very low key kind of gig, and one that obviously was partly promoting the new album, though not that Robert actually mentioned The Candle and the Flame by name at any
Nothing.
stage of the gig. He never mentioned it by name at all.
Dear, oh dear, oh
And
dear.
I mean it's. I don't think it. I think the pleasure in performing actually was at the heart of this, because he kept saying thank you for that, and so there wasn't even that thing of uh, doing any sort of background story on the songs, really. Any memories of go-betweens. A couple of go-between songs that were prominent, which Rock and Roll Friend, of course, he did his own version of, and
Great
also
song.
Rain. And he mentioned Tallulah, but didn't play Tallulah. He mentioned that all these people who'd come up and said, I got called Tallulah because my parents loved the song or whatever. So he said
Mm.
500 girls called Tallulah have done that at concerts to him. So there's some nice wry humor there, and there was a lovely observation about the way that he and Lewis were traveling by train from Manchester to come to York to play the gig. The whole tour, I think he was just traveling around on the train. And so anyway, so there he is at Manchester, and suddenly they're told no train will be going by Sheffield. So of course, as an Australian, there's no reason for him to know exactly the intricacies of the troublesome journeys that are always required to go anything if you try to go across the country rather than up and down the country. So he says to this hopefully helpful person from British Rail, what do I do when I get to Sheffield? And of course, with that wonderful bluntness that you get up north, he just was told, ask. So that was it. That was the only advice that he was given. And so that was a lovely
Don't
story.
say that to Elvis.
Yeah. So it was in its own way lovely to be able to actually just watch that close up. I think you made that point the week before about watching Peter Buck from REM that close. How often you get the chance.
Mm,
And
mm, mm.
he's a sort of studious looking man, grey haired now. The flowing locks have gone. It's
Did
a
he
kind of
look
close.
well? Did he look healthy?
Still trim, and obviously that that tallness that he had about him. I mean, there was no suggestion of absolutely in fine health, and
That's
still a
good.
songwriter capable of lovely imagery as before, and just there's a quiet cleverness about him in his observations, and just a little astute comments that got a little bit of wit to them. Also, of course, he is now maybe looking back in the way that he didn't in the past. So, of course, a song like When I Was Young, when I was a young man, which is the closing song on the new album, was very much a prominent song in this concert as well. It had a song called Tender Years to again contrast with that. Um, and then also then a sort of on the new album there's a Reason to Live, a song is called. So there is still the positivity there, and of course he's actually been pretty prolific recently. Inferno, you've got, I think Inferno didn't come out that long ago, so he is regularly writing songs. I would have just liked maybe a little bit more of variety, probably an inclusion of more go-betweens material within there, and also would have liked
So basically, it's
maybe some piano
he
playing as well. I would have liked
yeah.
that.
So he was low key, but he wasn't at low ebb.
Yeah, no suggestion of being. He genuinely was enthusiastic about performing, which was lovely, and I think it was. I mean, actually, and also to see him perform with his son, which you don't often get father and son combinations in concerts. So that was a
Yeah,
lovely thing to do as well.
I think
And
it's
that
madness that he didn't play more songs in the go-betweens. for the simple reason that if Toto, obviously one of our favourite bands of the 1980s, if they reformed, would they do Africa? I think so. Would they do Rosanna? I think so.
Yeah.
So I think anybody who's written great songs.
You were just looking at, why. Well, I was speculating as to why he may not want to do material from before. Maybe he's just, done it enough. He's of an age where I think now I'm more interested in actually pushing the new songs overall, and just hit, just with a couple of nods to the past. You might say, commercially that's not a strong thing to do. I don't think the commercial side troubles him. I don't think that's what he's wanting to do.
Well,
I don't
I
think it
think
matters to him.
I think he finds it embarrassing to do anything that in any way feels cheesy.
Yeah.
I think he cares about integrity
Yes.
way too much to be hugely successful.
Mm.
But the one thing that you can say about the Go-Betweens and Robert Foster is that they retain the dignity at all points of their career and have nothing to look back on with any embarrassment. That there are no skeletons in the closet.
I mean, because given that 16 Lovers Lane was not as big, it should have been a massive album and wasn't. Sometimes you get record companies saying, right, you're going to do a cover version now and we're going to make you successful come what may. And they never did anything like that to sell themselves out. They stayed true to themselves throughout, and they came back again. The comeback wasn't that was again about wanting to write songs together, having done plenty of solo albums, each of them, Grant and Robert. So again, done with integrity, and I think that was very apparent in this as well. A serious musician, I think overall. That's what he is. He loves songwriting still.
Well,
and
something as simple as this: they didn't use synthesizers.
No.
I mean, can you imagine any band that went for such a long time?
And I mean, their sound did become more commercial on 16 Lovers Lane. They did broaden the sound on that.
Only in a sort of classic guitar band sense, sort of indie guitar band sense. They weren't a class. They didn't become a mainstream pop band. They were hardly Cyndi Lauper.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, the label that the album's on, I was just checking this up. It's called Tapete Records, Tapete, or TAPETE Records. So that's a label that I'm not particularly familiar with. Have you ever heard of Tapete Records?
It's either Robert Forster's made it up and it's his own label, or it's some little label in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many. There aren't many clues.
Never heard of it.
No, so there aren't many clues on it. His son plays on it.
Well,
here we are.
What makes his lyrics great is what makes his lyrics great is he does not explain everything.
No,
but that also undermines his own career because he does not explain.
I've got a little leaflet here about Tapete Records, actually, and it's loads of bands that I've never heard of.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, there's any band. I think your theory, Graham, because Inferno was also released on this. I'm just looking to see if there's any band at all that I know. There are Dutch Uncles. I've heard of them. They're on there. But
they're reasonably big in a very small way.
But it's not. We're not talking. Hurricane Number One are on there, and Jaguar are on there. So, and Jazz Butcher. So there's a few names of bands that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, actually there are. Yeah, those are notable names. Yeah.
And Gary Olson is on there.
No, none of written songs as good as Robert.
And the Monochrome set's on there. So actually, so we're talking probably cult bands, which maybe is actually.
We're gonna have to backtrack in this, Charles. It's clearly a huge label.
No, it's not a huge label. I would say it's a kind of art house label. That's what it is.
Okay, boutique.
I was just looking at his lyrics that he's written down for She's a Fighter, and he leaves it at She's a fighter, fighting for good. Just the 2 lines. I'm sure there were more lines than that in the song. But anyway, that's all he's seen fit to put in the notes for it. So, Graham, I also went to a second concert in the week. David Ford. Do you know David Ford at all?
I've heard of him, but no, I don't know him at all.
So, really. I mean, he is one of those. Well, he was once on the front of the Sunday Times Culture magazine as the best British English songwriter that you've never heard of, which kind of lived by that, I suppose. with this one, he performed with J.P. Ruggieri, who is a Nashville session musician and a pedal steel player. But what he did that was unusual was he created a new instrument. And he usually has things like loop effects and and pedals. This time, he created a kind of robot version of a drum kit, which involved. He's got a kind of boffin side to him, as David, as to he likes to make instruments.
I think was David Ford good?
I mean, he is a fantastic songwriter, very passionate the way he sings. A brilliant new song about well, not new, but written in the frustrations yet again with the world of America and the world of Trump. And that was a particular. But he also did some of his very best material from the past as well. He plays both guitar playing and on the keyboards, and he has always lovely storytelling and a nice wit about him. What's interesting is how he works. He'll go on tour with other musicians. He goes, Jared Dickinson he's played with, and he's toured with him. Later this year he's going to be touring again with a new musician, because he does a lot of stuff on his own, so a lot of solo gigs, but then he'll suddenly go and play with a jazz trio, or he'll play with a string quartet.
Sounds to me like he's not much interested in it. Sounds to me like he's not much interested in being really hugely successful either.
So, in his case, the record label pushed him for quite some time, and a band called Easyworld was his band. And they even appeared on children's television to try and get them to have hits, etc. And his first book that he wrote, called "I Choose This," which written in 2011, was actually looking at the fact that there was pressure for him to be commercially successful, and and in many ways he did his very best to destroy it. But he's kind of got a cult following. He does a thing called Milk and Honeys, which is Milk and Biscuits. Oh, I've probably still got that title wrong as well. Milk and Cookies is the correct title, in which he does cover versions and sort of audience requests of them. So he's got that. He's always looking to. I like the fact that he will do anything to find fresh way to present music, to stretch himself as a musician. He also did probably my favorite ever Tea Towel, which I know an odd thing to care about, but he has a song called yeah. So he has a song called, well, it's basically "Shut Up, You Miserable Fuck." Now, he then brought out a tea towel that says "Wash Up, You Miserable Fuck." So that I thought was, the most unexpected kind of tea towel.
He sounds a bit of a card.
Oh, he's definitely that.
He sounds like he likes to laugh, but likes to mess around
but he will also be really
strong.
He's strong on politics, both in his knowledge of politics, and he wrote an album entirely looking at the world of economics, how it works. He's an intellectual as well as having an ear for a pop tune. And I mean, he's one of those artists, I think, much like actually the Go-Between should have been vastly bigger. I do always believe that David should have been perhaps more commercially successful in this, but he's found a way to be a modern musician who keeps making new albums.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.